Hello everyone, my name is Rafal and I would like to welcome you to another episode how I create this headshot. And today I'm going to be just talking about this particular image. I have received a lot of requests so I could talk about this picture. So here we go, and we're going to go through again entire process, how this image was shot, and we're going to talk a little bit about the lighting, we're going to talk about the setup, and then of course we're going to go to the gear and entire settings and retouching process. So this is actually the final image. I'm not going to show you how the image looked basically straight from the camera. We'll get there in a second, but let's jump into the behind the scene image and let's kind of discuss this entire setup. So this image was shot at the client place. Basically we used her living room, and usually the way it goes, I always kind of look around what can be used as a background in those particular shots, and we use actually this painting. Believe it or not, a lot of people were asking if this is like a TV screen. Actually it's not. It was a really nice painting which looks kind of like a photograph. Pretty cool. They had some really nice texture to it. There's a very interesting vignette around actually this painting, so basically I knew it's going to work perfect. Also the size was fairly big, so I knew if I'll compress the image itself, it's gonna really add something very interesting. So we've decided, I did some tests to kind of make sure it's working, and it was working very well. So we've decided to use that and actually create the shot. So as far as the lighting goes, you guys probably can see, again, nothing changed in this department. I use my two deep octas, the Alien Chrome 39 inches and the Alien Chrome 27 inches as a kicker. And again, we have used silver reflector just to kind of bounce the light off to create and to make like a fill for the face. And yeah, so that was pretty much everything. Also, you probably can see, if you look actually closer, there's another light behind the person, and that light was with the grid, so I could actually just directly aim it on the background, and basically I used it to create additional touch of light for the background, so the background would pop much nicer. So in this case, as you guys probably can notice, there was a 3 lighting setup: the main light, the kicker, and also I have another speed light just for the background, so I could just make sure that the background is gonna be lit properly. So that was pretty much the setup. We actually got into the photo shoot and yeah, just got some amazing shots. And yeah, let's move on to the settings and the gear. So basically, again, the same scenario. I shot with my Nikon D800, the lens, the Nikon 7200 VR2. I use in this case one speed light, the Nikon SB910, and I use 2 SB800. So basically I had 3 speed lights. We talk about the deep octas, so this is covered, and let's talk about the settings. So the focal length was 200mm, and the reason behind this, usually I shot actually with that focal length, but another reason, I really wanted to make sure that the background is very compressed, so that's why I just used that focal length, and I was shooting entire session 200mm, shutter speed 1/200 of a second, f4, and the ISO was 250. And the reason being was I just want to make sure that the background's gonna get that nice texture. It was a little bit dark around, so there was a really interesting vignette, but I want to make sure I can kind of bring that up. And the white balance again was set up manually to 5000 Kelvin. So that's basically how I was shooting. That was my settings and my entire gear for the shoot. So let's jump into the actual image. So this is actually the image which is already retouched. She had this really cool red hair, so that's kind of worked really well with the blue suit, and also with the background. So I added a little bit of blue to the background, and this yellow, you guys will see in a second like how this whole thing was a little bit transformed. So this is actually the original image which came out straight from the camera, and yeah, looks already pretty neat. There is a few things and few issues with the skin. The background, as you guys can see itself, looks already really nice. So I didn't do much. I just want to make sure this background is much more saturated and has a little bit more pop and gonna match the outfit. That was my actually goal with this. So let's kind of go step by step how I've created this image and how the process of retouching look like. So again, the first step, as always, I do just a general cleaning on the image. So as you guys can see, I just clean up some of the pimples on her face. There's not much. She's got a really nice skin. Also, the makeup artist did a really good job to make sure everything is really nicely covered. There's some flyovers which I've decided to taking care of, and some of the pimples on the face. So that was the first step. The second step, of course, in this particular process is always dodge and burn. So there's a lot of kind of discoloration on her face, underneath her eyes. There is some weird shadows around, so I just remove this and then clean it up so the skin looks much more cleaner. I also did a little bit of dodge and burn on her arm. So this is one of the tips what I would like to share with you guys, and this is one of the mistakes a lot of photographers do. They focus mainly on the face, and if there is some other, I would say, parts of the body, they just basically leave out and they don't touch it. And sometimes I see images where photographer cleans up perfectly the face, and then the arms or the chest is left out and looks like doesn't even belong to the person. So you guys have to make sure whenever you guys doing retouching and you guys retouching the skin, make sure you cover everything. If there's any open chest area, or there's some arms which they also have some discolorations, make sure you cover so this whole thing is matching each other. Okay, so that was the dodge and burn part. Then we did work on her eyes. So you guys probably can see I just kind of make them a little bit more bright, and I also add a little bit more shadow to her eyebrows just to make sure the eyes kind of pop a little bit more. And again, you guys probably have heard that from me a million times, but I'm gonna repeat myself. Eyes are always the most important part of the headshot, and you want to make sure they at least have a little bit of more brightness, a little bit more sharpness, so whoever is looking at the image, they're gonna go straight to their eyes. And that's why I always want to make sure the eyes are a little bit more brighter and they're sharper, and then they just basically pop, because that's what's going to make the major impact on the image itself. So we've done this in this particular case, and then we can move on to the next step. So the next step, we work a little bit more on the toning and the colors. I add a little bit of saturation to the image because I just wanted to make sure that the red hair pop a little bit more, the background's going to be a little bit more vibrant. And also I've added a little bit of more contrast to the image. So again, like, I just wanted to make sure that the image has this kind of three-dimensional kind of like look, and that was something which is always something important, because usually the images which they don't have increased contrast and they don't have this kind of like vibrancy, they look pretty much flat. So also, you don't want to go overboard and just create way too much. You just want to do like a little touch, so the image is gonna get this really nice feel to it. Okay, so the next step, what I've done, I actually brighten up a little bit the background, because whenever I actually just work on increasing the contrast, the background got a little bit more dark, and I just want to make sure that this whole thing kind of pops a little bit more. So this is what I've done. This is before, this is after. So I used just a dodge layer and actually just like do a bunch of brushes around just to kind of make the background pop a little bit more. Okay, so the next step, I did a little bit of fixing on the background, just a little tiny on the bottom. You guys probably can see there's something going on, so I just want to make sure to clean that up. And the next step, I did a little bit of liquifying. I just want to make sure that her hair pops a little bit more and they just kind of more fill. I found hair before, they're still okay, but I found there's no symmetry and they're a little bit flat. So I just want to make sure that I actually just give the volume a little bit. And also, if you guys can see, I actually just shrink a little bit her arm. I found like look a little bit, I would say, bulky, and I think it was just the angle she was holding the hand, and the arm just like looked kind of like not symmetrical. So I just like kind of use Liquify to just kind of smooth everything out. Okay, so the next step, now I work a little bit on some other details. I fixed the lips a little bit. As you guys can see, there's some kind of strange lines around it, and I think the makeup artist could just make this a little bit more perfect. But also I found the lighting actually did not the favor, because you can really see there is some inconsistency when it comes to the colors. So I've decided to actually just fill it up and just kind of make them look a little bit more clean. Okay, so the next step in this entire process, I actually again decided to give this image a little bit more pop, and actually I just brighten a little bit her face, and you guys probably can see she pops even more from the image. So contrast between the background and her face was a little bit increased, and that's what makes this image pop even more. Okay, so then the next step, I actually run another action of dodge and burn and clean up some stuff on her face. And also, like as you guys probably can see, there's a little bit too much light from the kicker on her hair. So like the hair on her right hand side are a little bit darker than on the left hand side. So I've decided to actually just darken them a little bit so they look a little bit more equal and there's not too much contrast, and basically just makes this image looks much more cleaner. And that was pretty much everything what I've done. So that was actually the final step. And let's actually just go before and after. So that was actually the image straight from the camera, and this is the image which was just after touching. So pretty straightforward. I didn't spend too much time on that particular headshot. I spent maybe like 20-25 minutes to go through the retouching process, and that actually is the final image. Client really liked the image. We've created a bunch of other stuff, but I will show you with another episode about some other stuff what we've done in this particular photo shoot, because there's some interesting stuff coming up. Anyway, hope that was interesting. I hope you guys like this entire process. Please feel free to let me know if you guys are gonna have any additional questions or concerns or anything else you guys would like me to cover, or I missed something. And yeah, thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned, and I'll chat with you guys very soon. Bye bye.